Between tables, chefs shouted orders and the sound of clinking glasses filled the air. Among the chaos moved Emily Bennett, a young waitress in her early 20s, graceful yet visibly tired. Her uniform was neatly pressed, but slightly faded from constant washing. Around her neck hung a small silver crescent pendant, which glimmered softly under the lights, the only memory she had of her late mother. Emily had been working there for almost a year, always kind to customers and willing to help others. But her manager, Mrs. Cole, was a different story. Strict, arrogant, and always looking for a reason to humiliate Emily. "Faster, Emily! These guests don't have all day," she barked across the dining hall, drawing glances from nearby tables. Emily bit her lip, forcing a polite smile as she carried a tray full of drinks to one of the VIP tables. At that table sat a group of well-dressed business people. Among them was an older man in a dark blue suit, quiet, calm, and observing everything with sharp eyes. His name was Mr. Arthur Harrison, one of the city's most respected billionaires, though few recognized him that evening. As Emily leaned forward to pour water into a glass, a customer's elbow suddenly bumped the tray. Water splashed across the table, spilling onto a napkin. It was a small accident, but Mrs. Cole saw it immediately, and she exploded. "Emily, are you blind? Look what you've done," she shouted loudly enough for everyone to hear. The restaurant went silent. Emily froze, stammering, I'm sorry, ma'am. It was just an accident." Mrs. Cole slammed her hand on the counter. "No excuses. You embarrass this restaurant every week. You're fired right now, in front of everyone." The laughter from a few guests stung like knives. Emily's hands trembled as she lowered the tray. Her eyes burned with tears, but she refused to cry in front of them. Slowly, she untied her apron, placed it on the counter, and whispered, "I understand." As she turned to leave, the pendant around her neck caught the light. And at that moment, Mr. Harrison's gaze locked onto it, his expression shifting from calm to shock. Something about that pendant seemed to awaken a long-forgotten memory. Emily's steps faltered as she reached the door. The weight of humiliation pressed down on her chest, and her mind raced with questions. How could a small accident end her job so cruelly? How could her life take such a sudden, bitter turn? Her fingers instinctively touched the silver crescent pendant around her neck. It had always been a comfort, a link to her mother, but tonight, it felt heavier than ever. Just as she reached for the handle, a calm, authoritative voice stopped her. "Wait, young lady," said Mr. Arthur Harrison, standing up from his seat at the VIP table. His sharp eyes were fixed on Emily's pendant. She froze, unsure whether to turn or keep walking. "Yes, sir?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible. "That pendant. Where did you get it?" he asked, leaning slightly forward. His expression had changed. The stern, distant aura was gone, replaced by curiosity and something deeper, almost nostalgic. Emily hesitated. It belonged to my mother," she replied. "She passed away a few years ago, and this is all I have left of her." Mr. Harrison's eyes widened, and he took a careful step closer. "Your mother? Was her name Clara Bennett?" Emily's heart skipped a beat. She stared at him, incredulous. "Yes, how? Do you know her?" The restaurant fell into stunned silence. Guests whispered, some craning their necks to listen, while Mrs. Cole's confident expression faltered. She realized that the woman she had just fired was no ordinary waitress. Mr. Harrison's voice softened. "Clara was my personal assistant many years ago. She was one of the most courageous people I've ever known. That pendant, I gave it to her as a gift when she saved my daughter's life during an accident." Emily's hands shook and tears welled in her eyes. "She never told me that story. She just said to always keep it close, to remind me to be kind." A hush fell over the room. Mrs. Cole's mouth opened, closed, and opened again. She had no words. Mr. Harrison turned his attention fully to Emily. "You've carried this with you all these years, and yet you still radiate the same strength and kindness as your mother. I think it's time you were recognized for it." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Then, with calm authority, he spoke directly to Mrs. Cole. "You have humiliated the wrong person tonight." Emily, still stunned, could hardly believe the turn of events. The pendant around her neck was no longer just a memory. It was about to change her entire life. The restaurant felt impossibly quiet. All eyes were on Emily and Mr. Harrison. Mrs. Cole's face was pale. Her earlier arrogance completely vanished. Emily's hands trembled as she clutched the silver pendant, feeling the cool metal against her skin. A reminder of her mother's love and bravery. Mr. Harrison stepped closer, his tone gentle but commanding. "Your mother, Clara Bennett, was one of the bravest people I've ever known. Years ago, she saved my daughter from a life-threatening accident. Without her quick thinking, I would have lost her forever." His voice wavered slightly as he recalled the memory. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She never told me about that. I only know she always wanted me to be kind and help others." Tears welled in her eyes. "I never knew she was a hero." "She was," Mr. Harrison affirmed. "And the pendant you wear, it is more than a memory. It is proof of her courage and selflessness. Seeing it tonight brought back memories I thought were long gone." Turning his gaze toward Mrs. Cole, he continued, his voice firm. "You publicly humiliated an innocent young woman for a minor accident. This is not just unfair, it's disgraceful." Mrs. Cole opened her mouth to speak, but he held up a hand. "You're fired, effective immediately. Treating employees with respect is non-negotiable." Gasps echoed through the restaurant. The manager who had just ruined Emily's night was now facing consequences herself, and the patrons watched in stunned silence. Then Mr. Harrison looked back at Emily, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Emily, I would like to offer you a position at my company. I need someone I can trust, someone with the same integrity and kindness as your mother." "I believe you are that person," Emily blinked, overwhelmed. "Me, work for you?" "Yes," he said kindly. "I know this is sudden, but I want to honor your mother's legacy through you. You deserve a chance to shine, free from humiliation or cruelty." For the first time that evening, Emily smiled through her tears. The pain and shame she felt moments ago were replaced with hope and excitement. The pendant around her neck no longer felt like a symbol of loss. It was a bridge to her mother's courage, connecting her to a new future. As she nodded, Mr. Harrison guided her to sit at his table. The restaurant remained silent, but now it was filled with awe, admiration, and the undeniable truth that a single act of recognition could completely transform a life. A few days later, Emily walked through the polished glass doors of Harrison Enterprises, a mixture of nervousness and excitement coursing through her. Gone were the faded waitress uniform and the heavy weight of humiliation. Today, she wore a tailored suit, her hair neatly tied back, and the silver crescent pendant resting against her chest, shining like a beacon of hope. She was greeted warmly by the staff, who had heard of the incredible story circulating around town, how a billionaire had recognized a pendant and changed a young woman's life. Emily was now Mr. Harrison's personal assistant, a position her mother had once held years ago. Walking past the modern offices and bustling employees, she felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced at the restaurant. Mr. Harrison, seated at his sleek office desk, looked up and smiled warmly. "Welcome, Emily," he said. "I'm glad you're here. Your mother would be proud of you." Emily returned the smile, her eyes glistening. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." The weeks that followed were transformative. Emily learned the inner workings of the company, assisted in important meetings, and began building relationships with key executives. Her dedication, intelligence, and kindness quickly earned her respect from everyone she worked with. She realized that this opportunity was more than just a job. It was a chance to honor her mother's legacy, proving that integrity and courage could truly shape one's destiny. One evening, Emily paused at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her office, gazing at the city skyline glowing with lights. She held the pendant gently in her hand and whispered softly, "Thank you, Mom, for always guiding me." The memory of being fired, the humiliation she had endured, now seemed like a distant shadow. Word of her story spread across social media and local news outlets. People were inspired by how a simple pendant, a symbol of love, courage, and remembrance, had transformed Emily's life. The incident reminded everyone that small acts of recognition and understanding could profoundly impact someone's future. Meanwhile, Mrs. Cole's restaurant faced backlash for mistreating employees, a stark contrast to Emily's rising reputation. Emily, however, focused on the positive, the kindness she had inherited from her mother, and the opportunities now before her. As she settled into her new role, Emily realized that life's hardest moments often lead to the greatest transformations. And in her heart, she knew one truth: no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted.